Well, as you can tell, the format for the introductions of young and not so young honorees generally falls into one of three categories: descriptive, comedic, and on occasion, serious. This is one of the occasions. Dr. Tanner will confirm that when asked to be one of the introducers to this evening, I demurred. My hesitation had nothing to do with you, Ms. Pidgeon. It had everything to do with me. Some kids at age 5 want to be cowboys or astronauts, or today, God forbid, video game creators. Me, I wanted to be a journalist. But I also was drawn toward a life at the academy. What could be better than helping prepare communicators to effectively contribute to public discourse and take their place as citizens in our representative democracy? Yet now, after at least parts of 5 decades in the professorial racket, I found myself pondering if, in truth, I had been the equivalent of the blacksmith or the buggy whip manufacturer who learns that Henry Ford is out tinkering in the garage with a horseless carriage. Had I been deluding myself and others about the value of what we were doing? And I discovered I was not alone. In discussions about the proverbial water cooler, I encountered colleagues, a number of whom are now retired, beginning to feel the same way. Now, to be clear, there's no way a denigration of the courses we teach, writing, editing, video production, strategic thinking, and yes, the First Amendment, any of which would be valuable to students in any major. But what was their unifying underlying purpose in an era of siloed media channels making us more and more isolated from each other? Social and other new media creating fake news, readership and viewership of traditional media in precipitous decline, stealth advertising techniques, the concept of public relations as a true profession in disarray. And I was pretty down about all this. And when Dr. Tanner called me about the evening, I was at best ambivalent about continuing to be a participant in this annual celebratory event. Yet here I am, standing up here introducing you, Miss Pidgeon. And that has everything to do with you, well, you and Sandra Hughes. When I went to Sandra to obtain information about the current whereabouts of and feats of daring do of about our honoree, and expressed some of these admittedly maudlin thoughts, Sandra, in her inimitable way, metaphorically grabbed me by the lapels, slapped me around a bit, and said something to the effect of, "Collins, get a grip." Don't you remember the first sentence of all those syllabuses I ran off for you because you could never learn how to use the copy machine? That sentence reads, "The overall goal of this course is to prepare you to take your rightful place as a leader in society once you leave the academy." She then proceeded to remind me of all those thousands, if not tens of thousands, of former students out there leading productive lives. Thanks in part to Dr. Way and Dr. Carter and Dr. Grant and Dr. Kim and Dr. Perdun and Dr. Kenny and Dr. Campbell and Professor Holmes and Professor Giuliani and Professor Carnegie and Professor Wiggins and Professor Malia and Lisa Sisk and Doug Fisher and Rick Peterson and Scott Farron until I cried, "Enough, I got it, I got it." Sandra was right, as usual. And back in reality, I realized there could be no better example of the success of these former students than our honoree, Stefanie Pidgeon. The proof of her success is right there in your program. No need for me to repeat that summary of her career exploits. But something you may not know, not long ago, Ms. Pidgeon was one of 3 women selected by Washington Women in Public Relations to receive the inaugural Emerging Leader Award, given in recognition of the award winner's growing stature in the communication industry. This is DC we're talking about. This is the big leagues. And remember, she spent her spring training with us. We recognize, Ms. Pidgeon, that it was you who scored well on the entrance exam, survived the MMC courses, successfully completed the comps, chose what was generally recognized as the toughest practicum assignment in DC. And it was you who demonstrated the grit and determination that has led to your continuing success, as evidenced by your rise to the ranks of Washington public relations professionals. For myself, I thank you for being a graduate exemplar, who, as King James might phrase it, has helped restoreth my journalistic soul. And while I would never presume to speak for my colleagues, I would not be at all surprised if they join me in thanking you for reminding us of why we do what we do, for letting us believe that we played at least a small part in your achievements, and for making us very proud you're one of us. Ladies and gentlemen, Stefanie Pidgeon.
Thank you, Dr. Collins. It is so great to see you here this evening. I want to start by thanking Dean Reichert and Dr. Tanner for hosting this event tonight. It's great to be at my alma mater. This is my first time at the new J School. I graduated in 2008 from the Coliseum, so I'm glad to be back. I'd like to thank Dean Bierbauer for his leadership while I was a student here at the J School. And I want to also thank Sandra Hughes, as was mentioned before. She was my first interface at USC. She was the first person I called when I was considering grad school, and she continues to be a familiar and friendly face to this day, so it's great to see you. As I look through the bios of my fellow recipients, I am, I Googled them all, of course. I'm amazed at all they've accomplished in such a short amount of time, so I'm honored and humbled to be up here with them today. I'd like to start my remarks by sharing a quote by Maya Angelou. "When you learn, teach. When you get, give." When I started graduate school at USC, I was on the receiving end. I was learning everything I could from my professors, all of their experience, soaking in all of the information that they could share with me. But it was the gift of mentorship, both from the professors that I had here at USC and also fellow alum along the way, many of them in the DC area, who have gotten me where I am today. I'll start with Camp Carolina. That's the picture down there. That's our Camp Carolina crew. If you're not familiar with Camp Carolina, that's a summer course where folks come to get, so remember that's when we went to the zoo? That's all of us? Yeah, you remember you guys remember? I don't know if you were in there. That was just the students though, but remember that? Yeah, I was a lot smaller then. Good times. So at Camp Carolina, it was Lisa Sisk who really opened my eyes to the opportunities in public relations and communications. We had such a great time. No, it was great, and I knew then that I wanted to get a degree in communication, mass communication, and it was you and Professor Wiggins who really supported me and ultimately enabled me to go into grad school. Once I started grad school, it was Jeff Ranta, who's now Dr. Jeff Ranta. At the time, he was not, but I just want to take a note to congratulate him on his recent PhD and his new career. But he was really a big mentor for me throughout my time. I served as his graduate assistant at the Carolina Agency for a couple of semesters, and throughout that experience, he really empowered me to manage teams, manage projects. And learn what it would be like to be part of an agency like that. And Ranta is also a Navy veteran, and so he taught me everything there is to know about strategic communications and what it's like to be a military public affairs officer. And I carried that when I went to DC. As you can see in these pictures here, I worked first with the Department of Defense outreach, and then I spent the last 8 years working for the headquarters Department of the Army out of the Pentagon. And I had lots of opportunities there to do strategic communications at the headquarters level and also serve as a PAO. I did about 5 Medal of Honor ceremonies at the White House. I was able to work with Sesame Street and do all kinds of amazing things with leaders up to 4-star generals. So great experience, and Ranta is the one that provided me with all that information, all that knowledge when I was in grad school. But then when I moved to go get my practicum, it was Rick Kiernan, who's a USC alum, who I was able to connect with. He was working in DC at the time. He was a vice president of a government contracting firm. He's a retired colonel. And I did my practicum with him up in DC. And he and I stay connected today. He really is a true mentor. Not only did he teach me all about government contracting, military public affairs, but he really is my biggest cheerleader. I still talk to him today about which job should I take? How should I handle this situation? All of that. And he's just been so great. And it's because of my connection at USC. That's how I was connected with him. So I finally feel like I'm in a place where I'm able to start giving back. And I have linked up with USC's Mentor Match program. I'd like to thank Rebecca Friedman for, Rebecca, where's Rebecca? She's here, sorry, there she is, for organizing that. I have my mentee here from last year, Renata Chisholm. This is the first time we're meeting in person. We spent our past year doing FaceTime chats, but I've loved being able to connect with her. She is a recent graduate of the J School, and I hope that I've given her some nugget or, and some inspiration and some encouragement and confidence so that she can go out and do great things in her career, and I know she will. I'd like to quickly also say that, my professional life always seeps into my personal life, as I'm sure it does with all of you. So I can't go without saying thank you to my parents who are here this evening, who really supported me. And I used to be a music teacher before I went back to grad school. And it was my dad who, when I called and said, I don't think I want to do this anymore, he was like, do whatever you need to do. Go back to school. Do it. Come back home and do that. And he was really supportive of me. And then my husband, who I met at Camp Carolina, that's him, top left. To Robert, I share this with him. He is a public affairs professional as well up in DC with me, and he's so accomplished as well. So big shout out to him. So thank you again for having me here tonight, and thank you for continuing to teach and to give back to others. Thank you.